We live in a world where structured data was the fuel for business intelligence, BI, but unstructured data is the fuel for the AI era.
The 6.5 is on the road here in San Francisco at RSAC 2026. Daniel, unsurprisingly, it's been all about AI. You know, it's funny, we used to talk forever about access control, but it's really about agent control at this point. But it's everything in between, you know, like I say, you say, tech is not about or, it's about and. Everything just kind of layers on top.
Yeah, the setup's great. Look, security is having a moment. We know that, you know, sometimes security is being pulled along by the innovation that's taking place, but we're seeing now that as AI is moving at such exponential rate, the companies are really, you know, they're struggling, and I think they're here in San Francisco right now working really hard to try to figure out how do we make sure that these projects, these investments, these proof of concepts that we're taking to production, how do we make sure that we're securing the critical data, the applications, and all the tools so that we can take advantage of the AI opportunity?
Yeah, that's right. Data governance is everything. And you know, Daniel, when you and I were at what some people consider the beginning of the generative AI with Sam Altman out in Seattle, the first thing that went through my head was data, enterprise data, how I was going to do this. And I can't imagine two better people to talk about that than Anand and Rehan from Veeam. Great to see you guys. Welcome to the 6.5.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Day 3 for you, right?
Day 3, what feels like day 300 right now.
It's not the way. By the way, if it makes you feel any better, this is my third different conference of the week. So anyway.
He was in a different country this morning.
I feel like that every day right now.
Yes.
So, but it's been fabulous. It's such a different RSA than the years past, but I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Totally.
Oh, absolutely. So let's start, Anand, with you. I mean, you heard my setup. Enterprises, they're all up against it right now. I think we're all excited. We're building. Some companies are vibe coding. They're implementing. The boards are putting the pressure top down. Use AI. Employees want to be more productive. But as all this happens at once, you think shadow IT was scary. I mean, the opportunity for risk, new threat services, what are enterprises sort of not getting, or what do they need to really be thinking about with AI, you know, especially when it comes to their data governance?
Great question. So I'll first start with your intro, which is you talked about security and AI. Perfect setup. That's why we bought Security AI, which Rehan was the founder and CEO
Great
of.
name.
You know, so great name.
That wasn't planned, by the way.
So that's the key. I mean, for us, it was all about how do you be the trusted data platform for the agentic era. But enough of that. I'll go back to your question now. What are enterprises not getting? People are talking about GPUs, computes, models. People are talking about how do I make sure I govern your agent and make sure the agent doesn't do anything bad. But people are missing the super critical middle link that it is actually all about your data. We live in a world where, you know, structured data was the fuel for business intelligence, BI, but unstructured data is the fuel for the AI era. And 90% of all data is unstructured. So you've suddenly just massively exploded your attack surface. You've introduced decision risk right now based on this attack surface which is imploded. So that's one thing. The second thing is because of that, the control point of security has changed. That's the other thing people need to think about, which is you historically said, I need to protect my endpoints, the perimeter, identities, how people access, how people come in. But now, it's not about that anymore because you're bringing AI all the way to your unstructured data. So data and making sure that data at a very granular level is understood and secured is the second thing. And the third thing people are not getting enough is now the infrastructure to deploy AI has fast outpaced the infrastructure to trust AI because now autonomous agents are acting at machine speed, and trusted AI becomes the super critical thing, and trusted AI falls immediately down to, do you trust your data?
But hasn't that always been the push and pull of security? Like, you know, security was often treated like the insurance, like the liability. How do we do as little as possible to stay? I mean, it sounds like AI is just magnifying
It is sort of, but security is stayed at a system level and the perimeter level. But AI goes at a very granular data element level. That is the heart of the difference. And that's why our thesis is, how do we make sure that we are the trusted data platform for the agentic era? When you do that well, you basically make sure that everything else you need to do in an agentic world is a lot simpler.
Yeah,
Yes.
in addition to what you're saying, what they should be thinking. I think I would also add that what they should be not thinking. I think what they should not be thinking, if you go out in the floors right now, there'll be very siloed messages. Oh, let's think about identity. Let's think about data. Let's think about AI SPM, AI security. Let's think about backups. They should not be thinking that way. Because on one hand, no question everything is about data, but it is more important what is related to data. But if you don't tie things back to that data, who created it? When was it created? What's inside that data file? Who has permissions to it? Which AI can touch it? What activity can be done or is being done? What compliance is related to it? What they should not be thinking is silos. What they should be thinking, interrelationships. And if you don't think it that way, then this problem is never going to be solved. It's going to be like, I'm going to look at my pristine lens of one bucket or the other. If you're a customer, why do we really care? I mean, you really care about solving this problem, and it's everything that's attached to data. And that's fundamentally what we've changed the game, is that not only that we do data security, yes, we do AI security, yes, we do data backup and resilience, but in a unified fashion that brings everything together, which is actually what's needed. What customers have told us. That's what they need.
So Rehan, I want to do a double click on what Anand said. He talked about visibility and control. With these new agentic systems, there are new workflows. There are new ways that we work with data. There's new data repositories that AI is actually creating to do agentic workflows. But let's try to simplify it for the audience here. What are some of the top breakdowns on visibility and control?
That's a great question. And I'll add one layer after it. So when we talked about at some point Shadow AI, Shadow IT, SaaS applications, it was simpler because it was just figure out what SaaS applications are getting up, right? So, and that was a huge wave. With the agents, they coming from all directions. It can be sitting on top of a SaaS application, that be coming straight to your endpoint. People are going to the internet, downloading it. That can be your developers putting in your infrastructure. They could be putting inside your AWS, developing applications on it. So visibility all of a sudden is about all visibility. But as I mentioned before, it is not about finding which AI model and agent is being used, because even if you make a list of it, frankly, that list will change every day within your company. What it can do on what data and what permissions and what damage. The visibility definition is not about AI visibility, is about what AI can do in your organization. That is a must-have. And it's a multi-dimensional thing. It's not like one entry point. So that's the one thing. The controls discussion, and also people should not be thinking, to your point, initial question, should not be thinking controls are just controls. What we've learned from our customers is that if you do not have hygiene in your environment, and an agent comes on top of it, let's say, what does hygiene mean? You really don't know where your sensitive data is. You don't know who can access it. You don't know what agent will access it. You don't know how much is old garbage data. If you don't have hygiene in the environment, agent will come in and multiply that lack of hygiene by 100x, million x, whatever, depending on number of agents, right? So before you even talk about protection, let's do the cleanup, hygiene, and maintain it, because it's not a one-time effort. There's no home that do it clean once and it stays home forever. You have to keep cleaning it, right?
Yeah.
So
reminds me of smiling. I'm smiling because as Dan and I are vibe coding and breaking every rule, I'm thinking, yep, I did that. Yep, we've done that. I get that. Yeah, well, I mean, we've created 7 agents in a month.
Here you go.
You're slow, mate. You got to pick up the speed now.
In a month.
I was reading about Coders Note. I think shipping 500 what is it, 500 a day to get like basically at that level of production. That's incredible.
That is incredible. But Rehan said something important, and then the third element is resilience and recovery.
Yeah.
Because you understand your data at great depth. You understand the relationships of your data with other data elements, but also with identity, with permissions, with entitlements from your security posture, compliance. But when you do that, you also need an effective recovery and resilience posture. Because when things go bad, which it inevitably will.
Well, they will.
They will.
It's just not.
But you got to at that point be able to surgically recover. That's why we call it undo. We call it precision undo. You're undoing 5 seconds of one data element being changed incorrectly. not using a sledgehammer rewind to take back a day's worth of operations, which has impacted the business. So when you now bring all of these together in one control plane, one platform, not a patchwork of partnerships, where your data security solutions with your security, compliance, privacy, governance, and resilience and recovery comes together, and you have a 360-degree view of your data across its life cycle, across live and backup, and then every data system on the planet, then you set up every company's AI transformation to be successful.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. Like so much of what I hear is the complaints about security for the longest time has been how fragmented it is. So when I'm listening to Rehan talk, it just occurs to me that there's a new opportunity right now. Like we are literally in this next era of compute, and companies that have sort of been trying to do security and patchwork have the opportunity to think about it more like you're saying, in a more holistic way.
Absolutely. And it has to be thought through from foundation up. Because even if you take these 4 or 5 different products, there is no one way to smash them and make them one. So you have to think about create the right foundation there, which actually captures all these disparate, very important aspects like identity, data, and your AI, and it brings it to one place. And above it, you still remember the persona that uses it may still be different, but you have to give them the experience, what they care about, what the outcomes they derive. For instance, compliance teams, they want a very different outcome, and they want to see it in a very different way. They engage it in a very different way. Whereas if you look at data security team, it's a very different way. Data privacy team is in a very different way. But if you have the foundation right, you can create their experiences for different personas, and I think that is the name of the game.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing here, you guys really want to be the data and AI trust company. So Anand, what does that really mean? Take the hyperbole out.
Yeah.
What does it mean in practice for enterprises to deliver trust? And how does Veeam enable that?
Yeah, and Rehan touched on it. It literally comes down to, do you understand your data in great depth? And when you think about understanding your data, it has many dimensions to it. First is the breadth dimension. Most companies are focused on one domain, security, cloud infrastructure. But to understand your data in great depth, to get to data trust, you need to be multi-domain. You need to understand your data across compliance, security, governance, identity, all of that together, and your recovery posture. So do you have the breadth of understanding of your data? Can you connect your data and understand it in relationship to the other elements? Like you have to get to a very good degree of data depth, not at a S3 bucket level or a database level, but do you understand your data at a very granular level, at a file level, at a row or a column in a database level? Do you understand the depth of your data? Do you understand the relationships of your data with everything else, identities, agents, models? When you bring all of that together, the breadth, the depth, will the visibility and classification work at scale? Because suddenly, for a company which is used to making sure they look at 1,000 systems, data systems, now they have to have a view of 1 billion files and data elements and identities and agents. So at that scale, can you still understand your data correctly, the relationships correctly? Can you classify with extreme accuracy? So when you bring these data dimensions across breadth, depth, and scale, you create data trust. You create trust that the data feeding an AI agent is got the right permissions. The agent is not going to access data it shouldn't be seeing and surfacing, and the right agent gets access to the right data. So this plumbing of data is the key on how it feeds the agents. Now, simple analogy, people, you hear a lot about Veeam monitor the agents. Like if you're driving a car, there's companies were saying, I'm going to look at the driver, make sure the driver is driving correctly and monitor the heck out of the driver. But someone has got to make sure that the fuel is clean and the engine is running cleanly and smoothly, and the car, the system is working well. And the heart of that is the data which goes into it. That's what we stand for. When you do that, you create trust in your data. Trust in your data creates trust in the AI, which is acting on the data. So that's how we think about the trusted data platform for what will be a very different world in the world of agentic.
There's no drivers here in San Francisco.
So
Yeah.
I think all of that makes sense to technologists. It makes sense to CISOs, probably who the stewards of the data inside of an enterprise. But do the boards get it? Has that changed over the last year, making the connection between resilience and AI and actual business risk?
They actually do.
So has that changed?
It has changed by, we always learn by experience. The fire is not hot till you put your hand on it.
Yeah.
Then you learned. That is what is going on. So when you talked about trust and talked about whether they're learning or not, if you bring an AI into the company, how do you trust it? Let's say you bring a guest into your house. How do you trust it? It's not going to steal your information or your household things. You're going to trust it because it's going to destroy something. You're going to trust it that it is basically, and if you want to bring AI into the mix, you say he's going to give you the right answers. It's not going to give you information of Anand to Rehan or Rehan's information to Anand. It is going to basically not do destructive stuff. You will trust it, right? And what is happening is we enabling many of these, not all, for sure not all, but many of the important aspects of establishing the trust. Many are going to come straight from the model, the efficacy of the agent and all. We don't do that. But the aspect that is when you marry it with your data and your rule book, will the agent follow your wished rule book?
Yeah, right.
And if it makes a mistake, can you recover from it? And if you can provide that part of the stack that we do, then you're actually establishing more data and AI trust, right? Now, coming to your other question, do people are getting it? The part of the reason they're getting it because destructive actions are happening. You can Google it and every day data is getting destroyed, whether it is Meta's news, whether it is Amazon's news, whether it is many.
Or even OpenClaw should be great.
OpenClaw.
Even though it's not, it's centralized, but it's not. It's still a great lesson in, I'll call it AI Unchained. And
Don't delete that production database or that code.
There you go.
That code you
There
don't
you go.
like.
Would you learn? Would the board know that the production data they will learn that you need this layer that can create the data and add trust. And then when you do that, then you can have speed. Then you can have speed and then you can go and deploy. So people are getting because they're getting their hands burned.
Yeah.
So let's take this home. The security angle, let's talk about it from the AI angle, because security, as I've said, the challenge has always been getting the boards and the investment to keep up with the speed everyone's trying to build out the applications, tools, technologies. So nobody wants to slow down. Mm-hmm. So, part of your ask here is, hey, slow down, pay attention to your security. And I think what everyone says, how do we do this and keep going this fast, bring security with it? And how do you do this, keep the pace, meet your board's expectations, deliver on productivity and growth without compromising security?
It's a great question. Actually, we've done it internally as Veeam.
Okay.
That was the thesis which led us to the acquisition of security, which is to go fast, you've got to first build the foundation. So the foundation is very simple. You have to create a unified platform across data security, privacy, compliance, governance, and resilience. Create the foundation, not randomly put products together, but one control plane. And then all of these are different blades or slivers or pillars of this unified control plane. You come in and deploy the control plane, deploy the platform, and then a customer or a company can come in at any entry point. Start with data security or start with resilience, and then fill out every single pillar. When you do that foundation, then you absolutely accelerate innovation. At Veeam, we took 6 months to build a foundation, not too long. Mm-hmm. And now we can do it much faster. Mm-hmm. The foundation is built across all of these pillars, unified. And now our pace of being an AI-first company across every function, where we are not just saying a workflow has to be enabled or made better by AI, we are reimagining our company workflow and processes across every single function. The pace of innovation is incredible. That's what we did. So when we saw our thesis was bearing fruit, the next thing we did was said, okay, what is the right company which will allow us to build this unified platform? The tech and the culture. Right. That was Security AI. That was the acquisition. And we launched in 2 months after the acquisition, we launched the first product drop, Agent Commander, which literally unifies this platform, allows you to detect AI risk, protect every data element at depth, and undo with precision if mistakes were made. That is a unified platform which allows us to think about Veeam as the trusted data platform for the agentic era.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you both so much. Great to have this conversation. I know RSA is, what do you say, day 300? Been a great event, hopefully a lot of great meetings. Congratulations on all the progress, and we look forward to, of course, tracking what you're building and continuing to talk to the market about it.
Love it.
No, it's great being sir.
Yeah, we talk about, success in RSA is, it's been 3 days, we haven't had the time to go see the floor. Yeah. Which means it's a good 3 days because it's time spent with customers and partners.
Terrific.
Love it. Thank you.
Look forward to talking again soon. And thank you, everybody, for being part of our coverage here. We are at RSAC in San Francisco, California. It's 2026. Sometimes I have to think twice about that. We are moving fast and furious. Appreciate you being part of our community. Subscribe, catch all of our coverage here at RSAC, and of course, all of the great coverage on the 6.5. For Patrick and myself, it's time to say goodbye. See you all later.